Good evening, friend. I am Silas Whitmore, your weary guide through the dim and forgotten corridors of history. Tonight, as the lamplight fades and the world grows quiet, I invite you to rest your head, close your eyes, and let me take you far from your bed into the shadowed streets of the medieval city. The air smells faintly of smoke and rain. The cobblestones glisten with oil and mud, and behind heavy wooden doors, marked by nothing more than a tattered sign, the medieval brothel hums softly, with voices, laughter, and danger. In our time, such a place might bring to mind tales of indulgent scandal or sin. But in the Middle Ages, it was far more complicated. These brothels were not places of romance, but of survival, a strange and perilous world where the line between work and ruin was as thin as the smoke from a guttering candle. Within their walls, every soul played a part: the workers, the guards, the keepers, even the cooks and the cleaners. For some, it was a livelihood. For others, a slow death sentence. Tonight, we will wander carefully and quietly through this world. We will step into the shoes of those who worked the most dangerous roles inside these houses of shadow people, who risked their lives, their health, and their souls just to earn another day of bread and breath. And as we drift through these stories together, I ask you only to relax, breathe deeply, and let the cadence of the past lull you toward sleep. If you find yourself enjoying this journey, leave a comment with the number 1. And if you do not, well, be certain to press the like button anyway. Now settle beneath your blanket, let the quiet take hold, and follow me into a night where the risks were real, the wages meager, and the work was anything but safe. The streets are silent, but for the soft drip of rain. You walk slowly, each footstep pressing against slick cobblestone, every sound magnified by the stillness of the hour. Above, crooked lampposts sputter with dim oil flames, their light bending and stretching along the wet stone walls of a medieval city. Ahead, a heavy wooden door stands beneath a tattered sign, its paint long faded. From beyond the door comes the faint rise of voices, low laughter, muted conversation, the dull scrape of mugs against a worn table. You are standing before a medieval brothel. It is nothing like the stories told centuries later, where such places are imagined in a haze of velvet and candlelight, perfumed and decadent. Here, the truth is sharper. These houses were not shrines of indulgence, nor havens of luxury. They were crowded dim and soaked in the sour mix of sweat, smoke, and fear. Their air carried the weight of desperation, and within their walls, work was as dangerous as it was necessary. Step carefully inside. The heat of too many bodies hits you first, rising from the uneven floor like a trapped mist. The hearth in the corner glows dully, its smoke curling to the rafters before spilling back down, mingling with the stench of old wine and the faint metallic tang of blood. At a rough wooden bar, a woman leans on her elbows. Her eyes are hollow with exhaustion, her smile practiced and thin. Beside her, a man with a pale scar slashing across his cheek counts coins, his free hand resting on the hilt of a dagger, fingers tapping slowly. The brothel lives in two worlds. By day, priests, aldermen, and guardsmen pretend it does not exist. By night, merchants, farmhands, and wandering soldiers slip through its door, their faces shadowed beneath their hoods. They come for warmth, for drink, and for pleasures that carry both a price and a risk. For those who work here, there is no luxury, no choice, only the constant calculation between survival and ruin. The workers, mostly women, though not always, endure a life bound by peril. Illness creeps easily through the crowded rooms. Patrons, drunk and reckless, can turn violent without warning. Yet for many, there is no other road. When winter empties their larders, when every coin is gone, even a place as grim as this becomes the only refugee left. And for everyone under this roof, the cook stirring sour wine, the guard watching the door, the quiet cleaner sweeping the floor, the danger lingers. The brothel is not merely a house of pleasure. It is a place where each coin is earned in shadow, and every night brings the risk of not seeing the morning. The night moves deeper. The laughter in the hall rises and fades like a slow tide echoing softly against the rafters. Beneath the trembling light of the hearth, the weight of this place settles not on the walls or the smoke, but on the faces of those who labor here. For the women and men who serve the guests, there is no freedom in these rooms, no indulgence. Only the grim rhythm of survival paid for with their bodies, their strength, and at times their very breath. Their evenings begin long before the first visitor crosses the threshold. They cleanse themselves as best they can, dipping cloths into cold basins, rubbing their skin with pungent herbs to mask the smoke and sweat that cling no matter how hard they scrub. The garments they wear are stitched from scraps colors dulled by age and the dim firelight. Their smiles, brittle and rehearsed, hide the same quiet dread. Each night brings the dread of sickness, of bruises, of not rising from bed when dawn comes again. Illness moves like a shadow through these rooms. Crowded air, constant touch, and the absence of true medicine make fever sores and wasting sicknesses as common as candlelight. No one here truly knows the cause, only that a cough or a rash can empty a bed forever, and that those who linger in weakness rarely recover. Still, they endure because each guest means a coin, and each coin is a small fortress against hunger and the bitter cold that waits beyond these walls. Violence is another shadow, heavier and swifter. A drunken soldier, a sullen merchant, a restless traveler, any may turn a night's labor into a struggle for breath. The guards sometimes step in, but not always in time. Many who work here carry bruises like quiet badges, and more than one has been left shivering in a corner, clutching a rag against a wound as the night carries on around them. Yet despite the sickness, despite the blows, most remain. Not from choice, but because beyond these doors there is even less. No family to return to, no trade, to claim no roof to shield them from the cold. The brothel is a cruel shelter, but a shelter all the same, where the dangers can at least be counted, and where life, though costly, still clings to its thread. And as the voices soften and the fire in the hearth burns lower, a figure moves near the door, broad-shouldered, silent, gripping a heavy staff. His eyes do not wander to the laughter or the smoke. They remain fixed on the threshold, waiting for what the night will bring. The door is his world. A slab of dark wood scarred by years of fists and boots creaks softly with each gust of wind. Outside, the streets lie empty, but restless rain dripping from eaves, shadows slipping between the narrow alleys. Inside, the air is warmer, though heavy with smoke and murmurs. Between the two, standing motionless, except for the slow rise and fall of his chest, is the doorman. He is not here for comfort. He is here because the night is long, and the threats it carries are longer still. His shoulders are broad beneath a patched cloak, his hands wrapped around the smooth shaft of a staff, worn by use, not ornament. His eyes, dark and steady, never drift toward the laughter in the back rooms, or the soft music from the hearth. They remain fixed on the door, the threshold where strangers enter and trouble often follows. The work is quiet until it isn't. Most hours pass with nothing more than the sound of boots squelching outside or a knock from a traveler seeking warmth. But the brothel is never truly still. A drunk soldier might stumble in, shouting his hand too quick to reach for a blade. A rival group, armed and bitter, might try to force their way through, testing the courage of the man who guards this door. And sometimes the danger comes not from without, but from within, when a guest's temper spills over, sending screams into the smoky hall. The doorman must be many things. Calm enough to keep the peace with a word, strong enough to end the noise with force when words fail, and always willing to take the first blow for the sake of those inside. Few notice his presence unless trouble stirs yet. Without him, the fragile order of this place would crumble in a single chaotic night. He endures the hours by breathing slowly, counting each passing sound, the hiss of the hearth, the muted conversations, the distant bark of a dog somewhere beyond the alley. His world is the threshold, a narrow strip between the safety of the room and the hunger of the streets. And as the night deepens and the lamps outside sputter against the cold wind, he shifts his weight and tightens his grip on the staff. Somewhere beyond the door, footsteps approach, slow, heavy, deliberate, the kind that rarely bring good news. And as the sound grows nearer, he straightens his back, ready once more for whatever the dark will send. He does not linger in the open hall. The murmurs, the laughter, the drifting tunes of the lute, all of it means little to him. His place is in the corners, the thresholds, the places where the lamplight falters. The enforcer is both sentinel and storm, hired not merely to protect, but to ensure by any means that order and profit flow without interruption. His presence is heavy, though he rarely speaks. A thick coat drapes over his frame, hiding a belt lined with tools, not meant for show knives, a weighted cudgel, a length of rope knotted at the end. His boots leave faint prints in the sawdust scattered on the floor, and the boards creak softly beneath his measured steps. Patrons lower their voices when he draws near, not from respect, but from a quiet understanding. The man with the cold eyes does not argue. He acts. His work shifts with the hours. At times he is a wall, standing between a drunken soldier and the trembling worker who has no strength left to refuse another demand. Other nights, he is the unseen hand collecting debts, pulling coins from reluctant palms in the alley behind the brothel. There are whispers always that his loyalty lies less with those he protects and more with the silver that clinks in his pocket. He is the line between chaos and collapse, but also the one who reminds every soul here, workers, guests, even the keeper herself, that nothing comes without cost. A raised voice can bring a hand to his shoulder. A missed payment can bring his shadow to a doorway after the lamps go dark. He is the reason the brothel endures, and the reason none inside can ever truly feel safe. He spends most nights watching, listening, leaning against the cool stone near the door, or standing silent at the edge of a stairwell. Each sigh of the wind, each footfall in the hall, each distant shout from the street beyond, he counts them all slow and steady. His patience is long, but his temper is short, and his memory longer still. And when the hours grow deep, and the brothel sinks into that strange quiet between bouts of laughter, he moves toward the back room, where the door is marked not by a lantern, but by the faint smell of bitter herbs. Within waits another figure, one who deals not with silver or steel, but with remedies and risks, a healer whose craft is as dangerous as the ailments she treats. The room is small, lit only by a single candle, its flame trembling each time the wind whispers through a crack in the wall. The smell is sharp and layered crushed rosemary, bitter wormwood, and something metallic, faint but undeniable. A wooden table stands in the center, its surface darkened by stains that are neither wine nor ink. This is the healer's space, though few would call it a place of comfort. She is not a physician, not by any learned title. Her craft comes from whispers passed from older hands to younger ones, from scraps of books stolen or borrowed from wandering herbalists whose knowledge is as wild as the weeds they collect. She moves slowly, her hands calloused, her nails darkened by sap and ash. In the folds of her apron, small pouches of herbs clink softly, each one holding a cure or a mistake. Her role is both vital and cursed. The workers, bruised or fevered, come to her when no priest will bless them and no surgeon will treat them. She brews teas so bitter they bring tears, presses poultices to wounds that fester, and mixes powders that promise rest though sometimes that rest is too deep to break. The remedies soothe, yes, but they burn as often as they heal. There are no guarantees here, only the thin hope that her hands can hold death at bay for one more night. Illness is her constant companion. Sora's coughing fits the creeping weakness that drains flesh and spirit alike. All of it finds her as easily as it finds those she tends. She knows the risk each time she leans close, tying a bandage or forcing a draft past clenched teeth. And yet she stays because someone must. Because the brothel cannot afford to let its workers fall faster than they can be replaced. She breathes deeply, the bitter herbs filling her chest as she grinds another root into powder. The sound is soft, rhythmic, almost soothing against the murmurs beyond the wall. Outside, voices rise and fall, feet scrape across the floor, and the smell of smoke seeps in beneath the door. She does not flinch. Her world is here between the candlelight and the shadows, between the faint pulse of life and the stillness that waits just beyond. And when her work is done and the candle burns low, she wipes her hands, ties her pouches closed, and steps into the corridor where the scent of roasted meat and sour ale drifts from the kitchen, and the next long night begins for those who cook and pour in this house. The kitchen is never silent. Even in the deepest hours, when the guests upstairs have grown quiet, and the murmurs in the hall fade to whispers, the back room hums with a steady living rhythm. The hiss of fat in a pan, the low crackle of the hearth, the dull scrape of a ladle against a battered iron pot. It is a rhythm as old as the brothel itself, a pulse that keeps the place warm-fed and alive, even as danger lingers in the very air it breathes. The cook moves slowly, her steps measured on the soot-stained floor. A scarf wraps her hair not to keep clean, but to keep the smoke from clinging too deep. The air is thick, a heavy mix of boiling meat, old wine, and wood ash. Her hands rough and red from the heat work without pause, stirring, tasting, pouring bowls for the weary workers who slip in between customers for a moment of sustenance. She knows the food is not fine. The meat is salted until it chews like leather. The bread, when there is any, carries the faint tang of mold. Yet it fills the stomach, and that in this place is enough. Near the hearth, the cupbearer works in a different haze. His task is to keep the drink flowing ale wine, sometimes a brew so sharp it burns all the way down. He fills mugs for merchants who slur their words, for soldiers whose hands shake with weariness, for workers who drink not for pleasure, but to forget the cold, the bruises, the long stretch of night still ahead. The liquor is strong enough to quiet the mind, but it is rarely pure. Barrels watered down wine, soured ales left to sit until they bite the tongue. Each swallow is a gamble, though few here care enough to hesitate. The kitchen is as dangerous as any room in the house. Not from knives or fists, but from what lingers unseen. A spoiled cut of meat, a cup too heavily laced to stretch the drink sickness, can spread from this place as quickly as from any shared bed. Yet the cook and the cupbearer continue night after night because the brothel cannot stop. The workers must eat. The guests must drink. The warmth of the hearth must hold even when the air feels heavy with smoke and unease. And beyond the doorway, where the floor turns to shadow once more, another figure moves, stooped, silent, pushing a ragged cart. The cleaner, whose night is only beginning, waits to pass where others will not linger. The cart moves slowly, its wheels whispering across the uneven floor. Each turn of the wheel stirs the air heavy with the lingering sense of smoke, sour ale, and bodies long since gone from the room. The cleaner does not hurry. There is no need. His work waits for him in every shadow, in every corner where the light dares not linger. His hands are rough, wrapped in rags to keep the worst of the filth at bay. Yet the stench still clings on his sleeves, beneath his nails, in his very breath. He collects what others will not touch, spilled drink soaking into the straw broken glass, glinting faintly under the low-light scraps of food curling with mold. And too often he finds things worse, traces of blood on the floorboards, discarded cloth, stiff with sickness, and the heavy silence that follows when a room has been emptied too quickly. The brothel never truly sleeps. But in these hours, when the guests fade away and the workers retreat to their narrow beds, it feels closest to quiet. The hearth has burned low, the music is gone, and only the sound of the cart remains rolling steadily as he works. The cleaner moves from room to room, sweeping, gathering, scrubbing with water so cold it burns his skin. There is no applause for his labor, no coin beyond what keeps him alive, yet the place would drown in its own refuse without his hands. He keeps his thoughts to himself. No one asks, and he does not offer. To many, he is a shadow, as much a part of the brothel as the creaking stairs or the smoke-blackened rafters. Few know his name. Fewer still notice when he slips outside at dawn, his cart empty, his face pale from the long hours in stale air. Yet the dangers he carries are real. Sickness spreads along the things he gathers. A careless touch, a rag lifted without thought, can bring fever to his own blood as quickly as to those he serves. But the work is his, and he endures it because the brothel, for all its perils, offers something the streets will not: a roof, a meal, a reason, however faint, to rise each day. And as he wipes his hands on the ragged cloth tied to his belt, he hears a soft knock on the back wall. Not the sound of trouble, but of whispers, news to be carried, secrets to be sold, and the quiet footsteps of the messenger already waiting in the dark. The knock is soft. 3 taps, each one measured spaced apart like a quiet heartbeat. In the dim corridor, the sound feels louder than it should, echoing off the stone walls, as though the building itself is listening. The cleaner steps aside his cart, rolling gently to rest against the wall. From the shadows, the messenger appears. He moves like smoke, not hurried, not slow, simply careful. His cloak patched and dark sways just above his boots as he glides forward. No one here knows his true name. They call him only by whispers, the runner the ear, sometimes simply Ghost. His trade is not with flesh or drink, but with words. Words carried from ear to ear, from room to alley, from alley to the coins waiting in another hand. His presence is tolerated, even welcomed by some. Secrets, after all, are worth as much as silver in this city. A soldier's boast, a merchant's indiscretion, a whispered complaint about the taxman, all of it can be gathered here behind these quiet doors and sold before dawn breaks. But his presence is also dangerous. For those who speak too freely, his shadow is a reminder everything said in these walls may leave with him before the sun rises. He sits briefly on the edge of a wooden bench, his movements silent, his eyes flicking between doorways. A folded scrap of parchment changes hands, vanishing into his sleeve. Another is drawn out, passed to the cleaner, with a subtle nod, payment perhaps, or a warning for someone upstairs. He does not linger longer than he must. To remain too long is to be seen, and for a man like him to be seen is to be undone. The brothel is his marketplace, not for pleasure, not for comfort, but for the trade of whispers. He knows which noble drinks too deeply, which captain carries maps he should not, which priest comes here beneath a hood to forget the vows he swore. Each fact is a thread, and he weaves them into coin, pulling tighter with every visit. When his work is done, he fades as quietly as he came, his cloak trailing softly against the floorboards. The corridor falls silent again, save for the faint creak of the cart as the cleaner resumes his rounds. And above them, past the stairwell, the heavy footfalls of the keeper begin a sound that carries authority and the weight of decisions that keep this house standing through every dark and dangerous night. Her footsteps are steady, not hurried, not hesitant, but measured, each one striking the wooden stairs with a soft, deliberate thud. The sounds of the lower rooms whispers a faint scrape of the cleaner's cart. The last murmurs from the hall fade as she climbs. The keeper of the house does not rush. She does not need to. Her presence alone stills the air. She is not adorned in finery. A dark dress, plain but immaculate, clings to her frame. Around her waist, a heavy belt hangs with keys, each one marking a locked door, a safe, a secret place only she may open. Her hair, streaked faintly with silver, is bound tight, and her face bears no softness. Her eyes do not linger on the hearth, or the guests, or even the workers. They see only what must be counted coins, contracts, debts, and the fragile line between survival and ruin that she alone must hold. Her nights are filled with choices. She balances the church, which condemns her trade, but accepts her coins. The guards who demand their silent bribes to turn their gaze away. The rival crews that linger at the city's edge, testing the walls, testing the patience of those within. She knows the cost of every decision. Pay too much, and the house starves. Pay too little, and the doors may be smashed before morning. Yet it is not silver alone that keeps her awake. She watches the workers, noting who falters, who grows ill, who risks bringing more danger to the house by their weakness. Some she sends to the healer. Others she sends away entirely, their absence explained with a shrug and a quiet shake of the head. Her duty is not kindness. It is endurance for the house, for its profits, and for the fragile network of lives tied to its walls. The keeper moves through the corridors like a quiet storm. She checks each door, each lock, each ledger by the flicker of a lantern. Her fingers trace the edge of a parchment, her lips murmuring silent sums, while outside the wind presses cold against the shutters. She does not flinch. This house survives because she does. And when her rounds are done and the workers have withdrawn, she pauses by a shuttered window, gazing out at the streets beyond. In the distance, voices carry a soldier's shout, a merchant's bark, and the faint echo of boots on wet stone. The guests will come soon, drawn by desire drink, and the promises that often end in ruin. The first knock comes softly. A slow rap of knuckles on the weathered door, followed by another louder as the wind carries voices from the street. The guests have arrived. They come not in a rush, but in waves, each figure stepping from the fog-dampened night, cloaked in shadows, faces hidden beneath hoods and brimmed hats. The brothel breathes differently now. The air, already heavy, thickens with tension. They are the lifeblood of the house. Their silver keeps the hearth burning, keeps the wine flowing, keeps bread and meat on the plates of those who work within. Merchants, their purses full, but their tempers thin, drift inside, smelling of spice and horse sweat. Soldiers, their armor still damp with rain, carry voices too loud and hands too restless. Wanderers cloaked in mud enter with wide eyes seeking warmth, drink, and a fleeting touch to hold back the night. Yet each one carries risk as easily as they carry coin. A soldier's laughter can sour into rage in a single breath. A merchant, emboldened by drink, may demand more than he was promised, his hand quick to grasp where it should not. A stranger cloaked too tightly may bring with him a sickness not seen until it spreads through every corner of the house. The keeper knows this. The workers know it too. Every smile is measured, every word chosen carefully, because one wrong step can bring chaos before the night is through. The doorman lingers close to the threshold, staff in hand. The enforcer's shadow stretches along the far wall, his eyes watching for the twitch of a fist or the flash of steel. And still, even with their presence, there is no true peace. The guests, whether loud or quiet, bring with them an energy that stirs the rooms like a restless tide. Some laugh too hard, some speak in whispers too sharp, and others simply sit in silence, waiting for the night to turn. The brothel thrives because of them, but it also teeters on their moods. A good night fills the coffer and leaves the workers standing. A bad one brings blood sickness or worse attention from the guards and priests who pretend not to see until the trouble grows too loud to ignore. And as the night deepens and the candles burn lower, the heavy knock of authority echoes against the wood, a reminder that the church and the law always circle, waiting for their moment to steep through the door. The knock comes again, not the light tap of a guest, nor the stumbling pound of a drunken soldier. This sound is heavier, deliberate, a measured rhythm that speaks of authority. The murmurs inside fade. The music, faint though it was, falls silent. Only the crackle of the hearth remains low and brittle as the brothel holds its breath. The church and the law rarely arrive together. But when either darkens the doorway, the air changes. Priests, their robes damp from rain stand, with hands folded, their faces grim as stone. They come not to bless, but to remind, their voices weaving sermons of sin and damnation, even as their palms extend discreetly for coins beneath the folds of their sleeves. The guards, armored and sharp-eyed, come not with scripture, but with steel. They do not speak of souls, only fines and punishments, and the heavy threat of shuttered doors if their demands are not met. The keeper knows this dance well. Silver changes hands quietly in the back room. Promises are whispered vows made to keep the peace for another week, another month. The brothel lives on a knife's edge, tolerated but never welcomed aloud to exist, so long as it feeds the right palms and keeps its noise low enough to appease the powers outside. Yet the threat is always close. A single brawl, too loud a guest of the wrong name, falling ill, a whispered scandal, escaping into the streets, any of these can bring the wrath of the city crashing down. When it comes swiftly, doors splintered by boots, workers driven into the night rooms, stripped bare, the scent of smoke and fear, lingering long after the torches are gone. Many such places never recover. Those that do so with deeper shadows, more cautious whispers, and a heavier purse for bribes. Tonight the storm does not break. Coins are exchanged, nods given, and the figures at the door vanish once more into the fog. The hall exhales a cautious breath, though no one truly relaxes. The memory of those heavy knocks lingers in every ear, a reminder that the peace of this place is never its own. And as the candles burn lower and the workers drift back to their duties, a distant cough rises from one of the upper rooms. A reminder of another danger, quieter, but no less deadly, waiting for the one who must tend to the sick, even when the cost may be her own life. The cough echoes again. Faint but sharp, slicing through the muted hum of the house like a knife through cloth. Up the narrow staircase past the warped banister and the shuttered windows lies a room few willingly enter. Its air is stale, tinged with sickness, heavy with the scent of damp linen and bitter herbs. Here, the hidden caretaker begins her work. She is not a healer by choice, nor by skill. The task is hers because no one else will take it. Her hands tremble when she touches the fevered, her face hidden beneath a cloth to shield against the breath of the dying. A small basin sits by the bed, filled with water that clouds, quickly tinged pink from the cloths she wrings out again and again. Each motion is slow, deliberate, not from care, but from exhaustion. She knows, as all who enter here know, that the air she breathes may steal the life from her before the week is done. The sick are many and seldom quiet. Some moan softly, lost in fever dreams, while others lie still, their eyes, half-lidded lips cracked, as they whisper for water, for mercy, for sleep. The caretaker answers with what she can, herbs steeped until they blacken the cup poultices pressed to sores, cool cloths across burning skin. Sometimes her efforts ease their suffering. Often they do not. Death comes quietly here, not in screams, but in the slow silence of a chest that no longer rises. There is no reward for this duty beyond a handful of coins, barely enough to buy bread once her own strength falters. The others in the house avoid her not from unkindness, but from fear. To brush against her, to share her air, is to invite the sickness she tends to nightly. She sleeps in a corner by herself, far from the warmth of the hearth, her own cough now rising some nights as she lies awake. And yet she continues. Not from courage, not from compassion, but because survival in this place leaves no softer choice. She scrubs her hands raw, in water gone gray, with ash adjusts the cloth over her mouth, and leans once more over the bedside. Each breath she draws is a gamble. Each night she wakes is a victory, however brief. Below in the quiet hall, the sounds of the house settle. The laughter is gone. The mugs are stilled. Only the crackle of the dying hearth remains, as the brothel its shadows deep and weary folds itself into the slow march of the night. The night has grown still. The echoes of footsteps, the murmurs, the laughter, and even the coughs from the upper rooms have faded into silence. Only the soft breath of the wind against the shutters remains mingling with the final fragile crackle of the dying hearth. The brothel, for all its noise and shadows, has folded into the slow waiting calm of the hour before dawn. Here behind these walls, life has moved in ways few beyond would ever see. Each person, from the worker, forced to sell their strength to the doorman, gripping his staff, to the healer breathing in sickness, night after night, has played a part in keeping this place alive. Not for glory, not for joy, but for the simplest reason of all, to survive another day, another week, another bitter season, when the streets outside would offer nothing but cold and hunger. It is a world built on risk. Every corner carries its own shadow. Illness that creeps in silence. Blades that glint when voices rise. The watchful eyes of church and law circling, waiting to strike when the balance tips too far. And yet, in this fragile space, beneath the weight of danger and dread, there is still a rhythm, a heartbeat, a reason, however faint, for each of them to keep moving through the darkness. Perhaps, as we lie here listening, drifting into rest, we may carry a thought with us into sleep, that even in the harshest corners of history, in places shrouded by fear and neglect, people clung to what little life offered. They endured not because the world was kind, but because hope, however dim, still flickered like the last ember in the hearth. So close your eyes now. Let the stillness of this hour draw you down into quiet dreams. And as always, if this journey has brought you peace tonight, leave a comment with the number 1. And if it has not, press the like button all the same. Rest well, friend. This is Silas Whitmore, wishing you gentle sleep until our paths meet again on another quiet night.